I'm Heidi Trelstad. I'm the owner of Chef Sugar's Cakes and Confections in Colorado Springs, Colorado. We are a local cake studio featuring custom work, sculptures, and things like that. And then we also have a retail bakery as well. Today I'm going to show you how to make creme brulee. We're going to make two different types actually, the traditional Parisian vanilla bean creme brulee, and then also a pumpkin spice creme brulee that would be appropriate for Thanksgiving. So this is actually a very easy recipe. Creme brulee seems like it would be so fancy schmancy, but it's really just a few simple steps. So we're going to start out with heavy cream. You want to make sure that it's regular heavy cream and not a light whipping cream or anything of that nature, heavy whipping cream. We're going to do 1 quart of that into a saucepan. Make sure you get all of it into there. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and put this on the stove and bring this up to scalding, which I will show you when we get to that step a little bit later. I'm going to go ahead and put it on a high heat, and while that's cooking, we're going to mix the rest of our ingredients together. Okay, the next step is going to be to measure our sugar. So we want to go ahead, and I use a scale for this process. You can certainly measure by volume as well, but the most precise way to do baking is always to measure by weight rather than by volume. So we're going to measure out 4 ounces of sugar, and just regular granulated sugar. Okay, so I've got 4 ounces of that. Next we need to do 8 ounces of egg yolks. So that's what's going to actually bind the custard. So creme brulee is a baked custard. It's going to bake in the oven. What thickens that is actually the addition of the egg yolks. That's what's actually going to thicken the entire product. So we need to separate the eggs from the egg whites and the yolks. The whites you can save and use for a different project later, but we're going to use just the yolks today. So we do need to separate those, and we want to get 8 ounces total of egg yolks. So to separate the egg yolks from the whites, I just simply cracked the egg open, separated the white, and then I'm just going to use the yolk today. So we're going to do that with several of these until we get to a total of 8 ounces. So you can use the shells if you want to separate the eggs, or you can use your hands if you'd like, whatever you prefer, as long as your hands are clean. And I'm actually just going to switch and grab some egg yolks from my cooler because I have some already separated that I'll just use for this. We make Parisian macaroons here in the shop, and so we have a lot of egg whites always extra, or egg yolks rather, because we use the whites for the Parisian macarons. So typically it works out perfectly here. And I don't quite have enough yet, so I'll keep going here. Now, while we're mixing these ingredients together, I do have the cream on the stove still. That does take a little while, so I do let that just go ahead and start heating on the stove while I'm mixing the other ingredients. It's perfectly fine to just let it go. It's going to take a while. And you do not need to stir the cream at any point in time. In fact, we would not want to stir the cream. That's actually super important. If you stir the cream, you can tend to get burned particles of the cream that would actually be on the bottom of the pan. If you start to stir that into the rest of the cream, you'll actually pick up that burned flavor. So you definitely want to avoid that. So just let it sit in there. It's going to create a burned layer at the bottom of the pan, but as long as you don't stir that into the rest of it, you're not going to taste any of that scalding. Okay, so I've got my 8 ounces of egg yolks in the bowl here, mixed with my 4 ounces of sugar. And we're going to go ahead and whisk that together till it's nice and smooth and creamy. So if you can see that there. Just want to go ahead and make sure that everything is mixed together. Nice and smooth. It's going to dissolve the sugar a little bit in there. Then I like to add a little bit of salt. I feel like salt really enhances the flavor of baked goods. So just a couple quick turns there, maybe just, you know, as much as a pinch of salt, if you will. Then I'm gonna add some vanilla. So I like to use vanilla bean paste. This is not very readily available at stores, but you can purchase vanilla beans. So in your grocer's aisle, you could certainly use just vanilla extract, which I'm sure everybody has at home, or you could opt for the beans. If you do choose to use the beans, you wanna split them in half and scrape all of the seeds into the product. Basically what this is, this vanilla bean paste, is what's found inside of the bean already scraped down. So this is all of the seed of the vanilla bean. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon worth of that. And then stir that in. And just because I like to go the extra mile and get a lot of vanilla flavor, I'm gonna add some extract as well. So I do like to kind of mix the two vanillas together. This is a great brand. They actually just sent me a promo bottle the other day, so I'll use it, why not? This is Adam's extract. If you're from the South, I'm sure you know what Adam's extract is. It's a very great vanilla. So I'm just gonna do about a teaspoon of that into here as well. Mix that up and we're good to go. So at this point, let's go ahead and check our cream, see how we're coming with it. We wanna bring it to scalding. So for scalding, we want to make sure that it comes to that stage right before boiling. So you can see it's starting to kind of bubble up here on the sides, and the cream is heating through, but it's not quite come to a full boil yet. Basically, we're cooking out any impurities and that sort of thing. It is obviously a raw product, so you want to make sure that you're getting any impurities out of there, and you want to bring it up to temp before we put this into the oven. So again, looking to that stage right before boiling. So you can see right there, that's it. It's about to boil, and we're gonna pull it off of there. So make sure you don't take it too far, because if you let it boil over, you're gonna have a mess all over the place. So you just want to get to that point where it's right about to rise. You want to pull that off of the heat. So at this point, we want to mix these two together. So eggs are super unstable. It's very easy to scramble eggs, and they don't take a lot of heat at all to cook the eggs. So you want to make sure that we temper the hot cream into the egg mixture to start with, instead of just dumping the ingredients together. If you dump the ingredients together, you're gonna have this hot cream, which is gonna overcook the eggs, and then you're gonna have scrambled bits in your custard, which is not gonna lend to a whole lot of great texture at all. So we wanna take a small portion of this cream, and while whisking, we're gonna add this into our egg mixture. Just a tiny amount here to kind of temper those eggs. So that's gonna heat up the eggs just a little bit to bring them to temperature, so that we're not going to shock them into the point where they're actually going to scramble. So once we've tempered those are a little warmed, now we can go ahead and add the rest of our cream while whisking. To combine all of the ingredients together. So I'm going to dump all of that into there. And then just give it one last little whisk to make sure all the ingredients are incorporated. At this point, if you want to be super picky, you can strain this through a strainer if you want to get rid of the excess bubbles and things like that, but to be perfectly honest with you, it's not a huge deal. You can go ahead and portion this right into your cups, whatever you're going to bake this into, ramekins or something of that nature, and then we'll get that into the oven. But what we're going to do today is we're going to split this into two batches. So half of the batch I'm going to bake off as regular vanilla bean creme brulee, and then the other half we're going to flavor into our pumpkin spice, which would be totally appropriate for Thanksgiving. So I do have these beautiful little ramekin dishes. You can find these at any local stores, Bed Bath & Beyond, etc. These are great, beautiful little dishes. You want to pour the custard right into them, and you want to fill them all the way to the top. So creme brulee, unlike a lot of other baked goods, is not going to actually rise in the oven. So it's going to stay the same volume throughout the whole process. So when you bake a cake, you only want to fill it halfway full because it's going to continue to rise in the oven, right? So if you fill it all the way to the top, it's actually going to overflow. But that's not the case with custards of this nature. You want to fill them all the way to the top so that you can make sure that the dish is completely full throughout the whole process. So once you've filled those completely full, we're going to stick those into another pan here. because later on, when we get all of these portioned out, we're gonna add some water to this and bake these into a water bath. Because again, we're working with eggs, which are a sensitive substance, and we wanna make sure that they're not going to overcook in the oven. So we're gonna bake that in a water bath so it can make sure that the temperature is consistent throughout, and so that it insulates the bottom of the dishes so that the bottom doesn't cook before the top does. That's the whole point of that, baking in the water bath, is so that it keeps the temperature consistent throughout so that you don't overbake. So at this point, we're gonna use a little bit of pumpkin puree. So I'm using Libby's today, but you can use any brand, or you can simply use actual fresh pumpkin if you'd like. Whatever's handy for you. And I'm actually going to reserve part of this. Sorry, let me grab another container. Okay, so using about half of my batter here, I'm going to add some pumpkin puree to this. I would say about half a cup's worth. And I'm gonna go ahead and whisk that right into the mixture. Make sure it gets evenly dispersed in there. And then of course, pumpkin's no good without some spice, so we're gonna add some spice to it as well. So I'm gonna add about a teaspoon's worth of pumpkin pie spice, or you could certainly make your own if you'd like to do your own combo of cloves, nutmeg, that sort of thing, allspice, etc. And then I like cinnamon a lot with my pumpkin, so I'm gonna add some extra cinnamon to this. So we've got cinnamon, pumpkin, and pumpkin pie spice into our vanilla base, and now we've transformed half of the batter into a new flavor. How fun is that? So we're gonna go ahead and take this batter and portion it out into our ramekins. And then we'll get this into the oven. If you could smell this, you would know that this smells amazing, like the holidays. So again, you wanna make sure that you fill these ramekins all the way full, because they're not going to rise in the oven. And we're putting those into a separate dish here. And we're gonna take our dish and we're gonna add some water to it, about halfway up the side of the ramekins. You wanna use tepid water, nothing too cold, nothing too hot, just room temperature water. And you wanna fill it up again, like I said, about halfway up the side of the ramekin so that it can insulate the dishes so that you get complete, even temperatured cooking all the way throughout the process. Okay, so these are gonna go right into the oven at 300 degrees. They typically take about an hour, but you wanna really look for doneness. So to start with, this batter is very watery right now. You can see if you shake the pan here, you can see a whole lot of jiggle. It's very, very loose and liquidy. As it continues to bake in the oven, things are going to thicken and set. So what you wanna look for is you want to see little to no movement when you shake the pan. So again, about an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. We are in Colorado. Things take a little bit longer to bake here. I always say for custards, it's safe to bake at a lower temperature for a longer period of time. So ideally 300 degrees. If you're using a convection oven rather than a conventional oven, you want to make sure that you turn the fan off. That's going to be very important in this process. And you want to cook in conventional at 300 degrees. If you're cooking, again, at convection, you want to drop that temperature down so that you get a lower temp to bake at. And if the option is possible, you want to get rid of that fan setting on there so that it can really truly bake at a lower temperature. So again, bake that for an hour, hour and 15 minutes. Look for the doneness of little to no shake. You can also stick a toothpick in there, see if it comes out clean, and you should be good to go. Once those are baked off, you can do the finishing process. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab one of our baked custards and we'll finish it off. So this is what your finished custard should look like. It's nice and set. So if I give that a little jiggle, you're not going to see any movement at all. It's just going to stay nice and solid right there in the dish. You could actually tip it upside down and it's not going to go anywhere. This one has been chilled, so it is nice and firmly set. However, if you want to use these straight out of the oven, you're welcome to do so. You can certainly serve creme brulee warm if you'd like, or you can serve it at a chilled temperature. But to finish creme brulee, the most important part is the burned sugar. So creme brulee is actually burned cream is the translation. So it's a baked custard with a caramelized sugar topping. So to do that, we want to add a generous layer of sugar to the top of the custard. Again, mine is chilled, but you can certainly do this right on top of a warm custard as well, and that's totally fine. You want to add enough sugar that you're going to get a really good layer of the caramelization on top. So I really go all out on the sugar. You can use a different type of sugar if you'd like. This is just a regular cane sugar, but you could use a brown sugar, a demerara, something like that. Whatever you prefer to do, that's totally fine. So again, sugar right on top of there, and then we're going to use our torch. So anytime you're using a torch, you want to make sure that you practice safety. So make sure that you're keeping this away from all body parts and everything else in the kitchen. Make sure that you're safe. So let me go ahead and light this off. Okay, so we're going to take our torch and start to slowly caramelize the sugar on top. As you can see, it's going to start to melt that sugar. I like to keep the dish moving so that you're not getting any areas that are more burned than others. Just kind of keep it moving. And you can see that beautiful caramel color that's starting to form on the top of this. I really like to get a really good color on this. Some people like to go a little less, but I like a really nice sugar coating on top that's truly nice and caramelized and nice and thick on top of there. Now that is super hot still, so you want to give this a moment before you serve these. So once you finish these off, let them sit for a couple minutes before you enjoy them. Okay, so at this point, the sugar on top has crusted over and completely hardened, and so now it is ready to enjoy. So you want to go ahead and crack right into that, and then you can dig right in and enjoy. Look at that. How fun is that? So again, today we've got two versions of this lovely dessert. Our vanilla bean or the pumpkin creme brulee. Going to be the same thing. You want to finish those off the same way with the beautiful hard sugar topping on top. And like I said, you can either serve these warm out of the oven or you can chill them first. If you're doing this for Thanksgiving, you can prep these the day before so that you have less to worry about day of Thanksgiving. So bake these off, let them set overnight in the cooler, and then pull them out an hour before you have your beautiful dinner, and then you can enjoy with your guests. So happy holidays. I hope you enjoy. You want to eat that? Thank you for joining me today. It was a pleasure showing you how to make creme brulee. I hope you do try this at home and enjoy. Again, I'm Heidi Trelstad from Chef Sugar's Cakes and Confections in Colorado Springs. I encourage you to have a beautiful time with your family and friends. And if you don't have time to bake for the holidays, come join us at the shop. We've got lots of goodies for you in store. Have a great day.